Okay, so the idea is to sleeve this power supply, which is non-modular, so it's going to be quite tricky trying to get to the other side of the wires. Now what do I do? Take apart this box? No. So I think what I'm going to have to do is use Heatshrink tubing, and the idea is to put the Heatshrink tubing along the wires there, with all the rest of the wires sleeved, and have the Heatshrink running right up into there. And what I'm going to use is Paracord. It's 50 feet of blue Paracord, probably about 20 feet left there of white, so using blue and white. That's 3mm Paracord. The Heatshrink tubing is 19mm. Now I would suggest that if you're going to sleeve your power supply, to get a kit, get a proper extractor kit. You can get each one of these for around £2.50 each. Got the Molex there, and all the rest of the kit, so it's pretty cheap. This is a difficult job as it is, so this just makes it a little bit easier. Now the first thing I want to do is get rid of the floppy cable. I'm not going to use it, it's completely useless really these days. So its problem is it's connected to a SATA power cable there. So remove the SATA power cable, and you can see there now the floppy is removed. That's sort of over to there. Now the way to get rid of this is take that wire. Not sure if that's very clear. Okay, basically just use a pair of pliers and snip that off. And again with the red wire, just take the pliers. If you can see right in there, see the two separate wires lead straight to the same little connector, so just make sure you get the right one. And that one just goes off there. Again, the next one, and the last one, and that's it. So there you go, we've now removed floppy cable. Now all we need to do is take the 4 SATA connectors and pop that back on again. So the connector's back on, and that is now removed. So next, it's probably best to start with the 24 pin. Now if this was a modular power supply, you could just remove each wire, sleeve it, push it back in again. That'd be a lot easier, but because this is non-modular, I'm going to have to remove all of these wires so we can push on the heat shrink all the way down before put the black connector back on again. So to do that, you're going to need to draw a little diagram with all the 24 pins on. Remember, there's always one missing, so that one's missing. Just the colours of the wires, so you know where to put them back when you're going to put them back. And to remove first wire, okay, you can just see the pins in there. So if you just want to take the tool, what I'm going to do is slide the 2 prongs down either side. Now you always want to slide the prongs across, so always coming across like that. It's never the other way, never that way. You just want to come sort of like that way. Right, just slide that to there. Right, that's slid into there. Now you should just be able to remove the wire. Right, so what was keeping it held in is just those 2 pieces of metal there either side. So when it slides on, it just holds it into place. What the tool does, sorry, is just slide them in so it allows to be released. So push those back up. So when you're sliding it back in, just in there, and we'll click in and secure again. So all we need to do is go along and remove each pin from the connector. As you remove each wire, just remember to label it. This one, just black one. Just gonna wrap that around there and add a little bit of sellotape, just so when you refer back to your diagram, you'll know exactly where black one has to go. Now when it comes to the paracord, just line it up, give you a rough idea of what sort of length you're going to need. Bear in mind, it does stretch, paracord does stretch, so you don't need to be too exact, just to give yourself a rough idea. Just put through that. Right, and then the insides on the paracord, just pull that out. That's it, and that just leaves you the end there. You can neaten that up. You go, just use a lighter just on the end, just to neaten up each end. Now bear in mind, if you buy the proper stuff, say from MDPC, it's going to go on a lot easier, but because this is the slightly cheaper paracord, it does tend to bend quite easy and it snags on the end of there. So what I've had to do is put a little bit of sellotape just on the end there, so that when you slide it on, There we go, it will just slide straight over the end. Then just use the X-Acto knife just to remove the little bit of sellotape, and that's it. Okay, it's now exactly 2 hours later and one wire left to do. So again, use the tool, push that in, see that there, like that, and that's in, and just pull the wire, and that's it. Then need to put a little bit of sellotape on this wire. So let's put a bit of little sellotape around there, take the paracord, and just feed that onto the wire. And removed a little bit of sellotape with the X-Acto knife. And then remember to add on orange 3. That was the last wire on there. So I know now that when I put these wires back in, that you can just see there, orange 3 will be the last wire just to put in. Now what I didn't account for at the beginning was how thick all these wires were going to be once they got the paracord on and all the bits of paper and the sticky tape. And I also wanted to do the 4-pin as well, and just one Molex and one SATA, which is all I was going to need for this. They were all going to be together, and then the heat shrink was going to go over the lot, but that is never going to fit. That's 25mm heat shrink. So I'm gonna just have to try fit it over this and see how that goes. But if anybody does want to try that with all the wires, you're just gonna need big heat shrink basically. So you want to go for more than 25mm, probably about 40, maybe even more. Right, so the heat shrinks, managed to finally get that on. I haven't shrunk it yet, so I'm going to leave that until I've done the top connectors. The heat shrink for the top that I used before was that, which was 5mm. The one they've sent me is that, which is also supposed to be 5mm, but it's not. So I'm just going to have to carry on and do it, but the heat shrink won't slip inside the connector properly because it's just a little bit too big. Even when it's shrunk down, that's still not going to slide inside, which is the difference between using cheap heat shrink and MDPC. Now because this is so big and it's really thick, normally when you're cutting it you would cut longer lengths, which would help you out, but I'm going to stick to 1cm cuts and just see how it goes. Right, so we have the one piece there. Right, look at your chart, and I need red 2, which is there. Right, so at the minute that looks like it's a little bit short, but as I said, this stuff stretches, so see, you can stretch that way up to the top easily. Right, take it, a little bit of heat shrink and just slide it on. Now, normally if this was thinner and smaller, then what you could do would be to move it over to those two marks. If I just move that back again, move that to there, hold it there, and then heat shrink it, and that would fit back into the connector. But because this is rubbish, what I have to do is pull that back to roughly, you want the wire showing roughly half the size of the heat shrink that you're using. Then I'm just going to hold that to the end there, see, just right on the end there. Right. Bear in mind that's red hot. Okay. See, now that will shrink back a little bit. Now, just going to connect that. When you're pushing that back in, that's it, that should stick in there now. So you just got that little bit sticking out. So all we need to do is measure each little bit of heat shrink 1 centimetre, so that hopefully it all lines up, although I doubt whether it will using this, and just follow the same thing all the way through until you've put all the wires back into the connector. Okay, so there's one more left to do. It's orange 3, third orange wire. So going back to that, we know that that is over there. That's the last one. It's a little bit short, so just pull it. There we go. And that should do. Right. So I'm leaving about that much wire showing. If this bit of paracord is just starting to fray, just give it a quick light, and that should be alright. Right, so we put that on there. Now what I've had to do, because of this type of heat shrink, normally you would move the heat shrink right where the end is on the metal, so that when it shrinks it grips the metal, and that is what keeps the paracord locked on. But because of this type, I haven't been able to do that. So what I'm going to do is get to there, and then what I'm doing is just sliding the paracord on right up until the metal point. Now what I'll do is melt this, and it'll melt the heat shrink onto the orange wire. Okay, you can just see the little bit of orange wire exposed, which you wouldn't normally see any wire exposed, but as I say, for this it'll have to do. So there's the last one to go in. Just slide that back in. So the last one going to go in. Yeah. That's it. So there's the finished section. Can't quite see that myself, but don't they look? Yeah. So they're roughly in line. It's not too bad. Could have been better, but it'll do. Okay, so if I was going to do this again, I would probably use around half that much of the heat shrink. Get larger heat shrink as well, so that you could fit the 4-pin or your 8-pin or 6-pin along with the 24-pin all together, so it would look a lot neater. So yeah, overall, I mean, it's okay. This is clearly the difference between using MDPC, their proper sleeving, and their proper heat shrink, as opposed to using cheap heat shrink and paracord. But if anybody's thinking of using cheap heat shrink and paracord, and they have a non-modular power supply, then hopefully this has been of some help. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.